Today in our road to Unicum, we look at ranked battles. We are in Season 1 and completed 2 stages so far. I've worked my way up to 331st position, which is top 4% for North America, playing the Bat Chat exclusively. And I learned a ton in Stage 1 that helped me to improve my performance in Stage 2. I'm up to like a 74% Chevron or 73% Chevron efficiency in Stage 2, and I'll share with you a lot of what I've learned with 3 battles in this video. So we're going to take a look at Redshire first, and we've got the south spawn. From the north spawn, what you want to do is head toward a ridge if you're in a spotting tank over at E6 and 7. There's kind of a line, a gray line. If you look at the map, there's a row of bushes. You can passive scout there. You have to be really careful about firing because you can get counter spotted by their tanks that often go around the G5 area. But in this case, we're in the south spawn, so there's a really good rock on the western side of the east hill. So I'm going to go up to that F8, F9 rock area and spot. You do have to be careful. You can get counter spotted moving up here. So I'm kind of staying a little bit toward the right, and then I'll cut a hard left because I'm relying on this rock and this bush to provide camo. The reason why that I come here is twofold. One, it will give us an idea what their deployment is looking like on the eastern side of the map, and that will allow our arties to fire and hopefully get some early damage. It will also allow me to fire on any tanks that are spotted on the western ridge that is along the 4 and 5 area. Now, granted, when you start getting to ranks 3 and 4, what you will see a lot of are Blunicums and Unicums, so good to extremely skilled players, and they make fewer and fewer mistakes relative to what you see in public battles. You know, against puppies, what's really common is they'll get spotted on that western crescent-shaped hill, and you'll get some early damage. Now, I do manage to land 2 damaging shots without getting spotted, and I tracked the E4, so we get a little extra damage to him, and it gets hit by Artie. One thing that's really impressive, you can see all these Artie shots are landing. You know, people complain about Artie in random battles as being too powerful or, you know, an indirect fire mechanic, which is bad for the game. Like, I have a newfound respect for how ridiculous Artie is when it's actually being played by people who are good and can kind of pre-anticipate and aim properly and know where they should be firing. Because you'll see some pinpoint Artie shots that are made throughout the 3 battles in this video. So far we haven't really spotted too many of their tanks on the western side of the river. We have some of our mediums that are pushing up a bit to see if they can counter spot some of their mediums. So I'm keeping an eye here, and you can see we've gotten a grill, a TD in the bottom southwest corner of the map. And there is a shot here on this Bat Chat, but he moves behind the rock, and their mouse is going to quickly dip below the hill. So they were only exposed for a really brief period of time. Now, what's kind of brutal here from a matchmaking perspective is that we only got 2 true super heavies. So we got a mouse and an IS-7, whereas they had more super heavies. And you'll see this in both ranked battles as well as public battles. You know, the side that has the greater number of super heavies in a 210 battle has a massive advantage. They just have a huge hit point pool to work with, and they can bully tanks in ways which are, in a way, kind of unfair, right? So our mouse is dead, our IS-7 is in a terrible position, totally isolated and can't really get out nor get a ton of help. And he's pretty artieable from where he is, even if he's down in the ditch. So it's only a matter of time before he's going to die. Our third heavy tank is a 50B, which is technically classified as a heavy, but its turret armor is paper thin, so you know it's easy to punch it in the face. We are going to lose the eastern side of the map, and our 50B is retreating, which really he should. Our STRV is already kind of dug into a sniping position, and what a puppy would typically do in this situation if they were driving a Bat Chat is they would flee to the west side of the river, right? And you're going to see that's the wrong thing to do. I and the STRV are our best chances at spotting these tanks and punishing them if their heavies exit south, right? We have to do something about those tanks, because if they push and manage to get to the river, it's game over for us. And one thing which is really cool, you'll see our arties are already starting to position and slide to the western side of the map. Puppy arties who are average or below average players will typically just sit in the same spot the whole game, even after the map control is shifted, right? But you'll see our arties gradually move to the west, which they should, and therefore, you know, prevent themselves from getting spotted early. I'm having to be really patient here. Our mediums on the west really can't push because there is a mouse anchoring their defense, and so they can't push the mouse without getting shot on by the mediums. they can't, push those mediums without having that brick wall in front of them. So they're kind of stalemated, and that's another reason why I'm staying on this eastern side of the map. So their heavies are starting to push out. And keep in mind, some of these players on their side are ranked, 3 and 4 players. They're not going to be as skilled as the people that you're going to see in the next 2 battles after this, right? So, a lot of times people think, well, we won the side, we should push it. And in a, public battle, randoms, that's totally true. Against competent opponents, you're going to see that may not work out so well for them. I get one shot into the E4 and kind of rush my next shot because I need to get, behind this, building to help protect me. And what is going to make this difficult is we never really spotted the northern half of the West Hill. So where their mouse is up to their bat chat, we don't know who's up there, right? And so they've got some tanks, such as their STRV, that, it's going to be kind of hard for me to be where I am without taking some risk. But you got to do it. If I play too passively, they're going to push us west of the river. We'll get constrained to the southwest corner of the map, and then we'll get squeezed. And check out the spotting damage. This is what really turns the battle right here. We were down 4 tanks, and then thanks to my spotting, we took out 3 tanks in a row. So we're only down 1 tank, and I don't really want to abandon the river yet because the E5 and the IS4, I should at least spot them at the same time as they spot me, or potentially spot them before, right? And our arties now, they've all moved down into the K1 and K2 positions, which they should, so they're not going to be under any risk of getting spotted yet unless we get squeezed more. Right? And their STRV knows where I am generally. He's somewhere on the northern side of the map, probably north of the F line, right? Because our bat chat and 430 haven't spotted him. So, I have to be kind of aware that he's the most dangerous tank to me, aside from these 2 heavies that could spot me. And we just got another kill there, so the score is even. And we have 2 options here. We can try to win this southern side of the map and then push along the river on the eastern side of the map. I'm actually not even thinking that far yet. I'm just thinking we just got to kill these heavies. If we kill these heavies, then this opens it up, and we can think about either pushing the west side, the 1 line, or somewhere else. Okay, I've just gotten hit by the STRV from the left a little bit, so he may be up on a ridge. Kind of, see where their bat chat is now spotted, probably on the eastern side of that, somewhere thereabouts. And so I can't really stay here. I was hoping that we'd be able to kill their E5. Their E5 actually repositioned, which was a smart thing to do. And while I could stop to take shots here, there is the risk that if I get counter-spotted, I'm going to be in the open, and I'm going to take too much damage. So, it's interesting. In public battles and pubbing, you can take greater risks taking shots and not having puppies react as quickly or anticipated. I found that in ranked battles, you can't do that. You have to assume competence. Like, look at this. Like, the SRV gets spotted and just gets insta-gibbed, But because the SRV is dead and their E5 and mouse have been spotted, we have an idea where their E4 is, this opens up the northern side of the map. So our bat chats and 121s, our mediums can now push north, and I've just spotted their mouse. He's not going to be able to shoot me as long as I move quickly and stay below the ridge, unless he comes up and over, in which case he's going to be exposing himself to fire from all 3 of our arties and our grill. Really what was critical about this whole game flow was just recognizing we had to do something about their tanks east, otherwise they were just going to bully us into oblivion. We basically, most of our guys who landed those 3 kills weren't even spotted by those heavies. They just got absolutely wrecked. And once this arty was spotted, he's in a really defensive posture. He can't really do much. And we know where their E4 is. I can tell even before I come up with this ridge, he's not looking my way. This is a great opportunity to take a dangerous tank off the battlefield. I do eat a shot from the mouse, but in some cases, taking a damaging shot is worth it to remove an opponent. And their E5 is now in a really tough spot. A few of our mediums are low in terms of hit points, but if they go in together, they can get a 2 versus 1, a 3 versus 1, and simply out DPM the E5. I love the fact, those mediums, our mediums that were in the north, they recognized that situation immediately and went and pushed in that E5's junk. We haven't spotted their arty yet. It's only going to be a matter of time. He's probably sitting well east of the river. And that's another thing too, is you have to assume that people will relocate a lot in this game, especially arty. Like when you're pubbing, a lot of times arties are played, frankly this is going to be mean, but they're played by less skilled players in a lot of cases. And they don't reposition or pay attention to what's going around them. I mean, they do things like I'm doing, like they drive into buildings and they're just not terribly aware. Like the struggle is real. Thankfully, I get around this building in time to get into killing shots on this IS-4, and then our guys polish off that last arty. So I get my, looks like the third chevron, moving through from rank 4 up to 5. What's really cool about once you get to rank 5, well actually I don't know if I should say it's cool, but once you get to rank 5, you can't de-rank anymore. At that point, you're working on getting vehicles, separate vehicles, to rank 6, 7, and above, and each time you gain a rank, you gain a point. So I've gained 12 points through 2 stages, so 6 points per stage, which means with my bat chat, basically I got up to personal rank 5 and then vehicle rank 6 on the bat chat. One thing that I did a lot in stage 1 was I was way too aggressive with my spots. So the things that would work against mediocre opponents simply doesn't work against Blunicums and Unicums, and it's because they expect it, right? So one really great thing you can do on this map early, and it is risky, is you can go spot that E6, E7 ridge to get a sense of their early deployment east. I'll do this from either side of the map. I think I've shown that in other videos, but what you have to be careful is in a bat chat is coming around the corner without your gun ready to fire. Now I could come up here strictly to pass, to scout, active scout, and not fire, but I would prefer to come up here. You can see I'm timing my approach, so just as I come around this little ridge here, I'm ready to aim it and fire. And that's very intentional, and because this ridge here is to my right, I can back up behind it and it acts as great hard cover. I do take a shot here in a moment from an E50M on the left side of the map, but if you just saw that arty shot that finished off the Leo was probably trucking 40, 45 kilometers an hour, and our arty blapped him, on the move. And again, the higher up you go, like these are all rank 5 players and above, they're highly competent, and so you have to be really careful when facing arty and understanding when you're going to be exposed and not being too predictable. So I had only fired 2 shots, but I want to carry around 5 as much as possible. So I go ahead and reload, drive into that building. Really, to be honest, I'm just staring at the mini-map. I'm not really looking where I'm driving. I probably should be paying a little bit better attention to see if I can either both spot some of their tanks and also figure out where I want to go. Now, the real risk here is we might lose east. We have a 113 that pushed in too deep. We have a mouse who hasn't pushed up aggressively enough. So I got to get up here and help them. And I spot this M48. And this is what I mean by the competence of the players here, right? That M48 Patton dies within 10 seconds of my spotting him, right? And that talks about the quality of the focus fire, the awareness, the hand-eye coordination to take people out, and mistakes are punished brutally. That's the number one thing I enjoy about World of Tanks. It's a high skill cap game. I talk about this a lot, where this isn't like MMORPGs, which is my background from a PvP perspective. I did a lot of rated context arena, in games like World of Warcraft and WildStar, etc. Let me get to that in a second. I'm calling for help, but this is amazing. This is what I really loved about these higher ranked battles, is it's almost like clan wars, but without the need for a caller, because people recognize situations. And I started asking for help, but even as I was doing that, our mediums were already anticipating that we had a chance to polish off their TVP, right, their remaining guy, because he was holding this edge. And now, our tanks east, we've effectively won the eastern flank. We can go wherever the heck we want. Now, I don't push around them clockwise to the north, because obviously I don't have any shells, and I don't know if any of their tanks are kind of sitting back along that A lane, which is pretty popular with snipers and TDs, to deal some damage. Now, I'm not going to be able to do what I prefer to do. I'd prefer not to get spotted until I have my clip fully reloaded, but it's okay. We've got them on the run. We've smashed them east. Our tanks are going to push up super aggressively, which we should, because this remaining Russian medium tank is not going to be able to really do much, if he's being chased by 3 bat chats. And, we're going to see here in a moment whether they've got any snipers that we can spot. You might be wondering why I'm not running premium food, and the simple answer is I want to make money in ranked context. I am actually making money. I do have a premium subscription, which obviously helps, and then the only premium consumable that gets used with any frequency is the first aid kit, but I use it because it's got that passive bonus to prevent the crew from getting, injured in the first place. And then the automatic fire extinguisher, as I've talked about in other videos, it'll pay for itself, right? The passive benefit is good, and the fact that it triggers immediately after you get set on fire means it's worth using. Now, as you notice, I've got a full silver ammo layout, and in public battles, I have only used silver ammo, and this is on my original watt count for a number of reasons. I've talked about this in other videos, but gold ammo is it's super problematic for balance across classes, because the tanks that lug around the heavy armor, when you use gold ammo, that takes away one of their biggest benefits of their tank and leaves them with all the downsides of having to lug around very heavy armor. But for ranked mode, a lot of people run super heavy gold layouts. Now, obviously, in a medium tank, if you're planning on flanking people, you don't have to do it as much. I'm not using heat, so I can't snapshot the beefy heavies in the face like you could against like an E100 or a Mouse or whoever. But for the most part, I don't try to brawl with heavies frontally anyway. Like, that's kind of stupid. That's an engagement that favors them. And by the way, right there, you notice as I came over the hill, I got the time perfectly. Right when I came over the hill, I was about ready to fire. And then I know where that 907 is, generally speaking, and then certainly with that incoming bounce shell, that basically acts as a homing device that I can just follow in and then shotgun him in the face. So like I was saying, I think in ranked context, especially if you're playing like a heavy tank, you have to load a lot of premium ammo, because your opponents will be doing it, and because a lot of heavies don't have meaningful weak spots. True heavies, the super heavies, if you're not running premium ammo, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage. I'm able to get by with it. In the stage 2, I upped my spotting damage to over 1100 and my damage per game up to around 2300, which was a huge jump from stage 1. Like, I hadn't done clan wars, so a lot of the counter spotting and especially the coordinated pushes, I knew that people would do them in theory, but I'd actually never seen them practice like they are in these ranked battles, and it actually makes these ranked battles tremendously fun from that perspective. Like, you'll see, I probably want to show this for a couple of reasons. One, I get to vehicle rank 6, and this is the last battle that I did in stage 2. The other thing is I get counter spotted, so that bat chat on their side took a really aggressive spotting line, but he anticipated that I and possibly other bat chats might come up here, so I got shot once and I had to back off. And now I'm having to take a very careful line where I am using the rock and the bush in front of me to move up without being spotted. But because I was delayed from getting up to this rock, I missed potential damaging opportunities shooting at their heavies at their cross, and I didn't get a chance to pick up any kind of spotting of tanks or spotting credit. Now, their bat chat stops here for some, I don't know why, and allows me to put 2 shells into him, which you really shouldn't. And I'm not going to reload yet. You notice I reload the moment I don't think I'm going to be using my gun for a while, and there's nothing spotted. And again, in a public battle context, I might hold on to those 2 shells for another 10 seconds to see if someone's spotted. I can see where that 62A is, but against players of this caliber, rank 4 or 5 and above, they're simply not going to expose themselves on the eastern side of that ridge for any meaningful length of time if they think they can get spotted. So I'm kind of hanging out here and being patient, waiting for my reload to get up. Now it's starting to finish up. I can peek out a little bit here. I'm under no danger of getting counter spotted. The only thing that could spot me from the north side is a bat chat that's sitting in a bush, but we know that they don't have one up there. I could be counter spotted if they had a TD as well, but since I'm not moving for the most part, I'm getting the full benefit of stationary camo on the bat chat. Which isn't to say, by the way, that you should remain stationary. You should move as much as you need to be safe, and then I get a nice kill shot here on this bat chat who picked a very exposed approach. Like, you wouldn't see that typically, or you shouldn't see that a lot within ranked context if people are being smart. And this E50M, he also takes a very bad approach. He's too high up on the ridge. He could be down more in the gutter, and so he allows me 2 easy shots into his side. There is certainly some benefit to using APCR. Because it's super high shell velocity, it's much easier to hit tanks on the move or at a distance, and you don't have to worry about having your heat shell get eaten up by tracks. But it is funny to me. There was a video posted on Reddit today from Quickie Baby, and people were complaining that it's a huge credit sink, and being in ranked battles, especially if you're planning on progressing to rank 4 and above, because you're facing a lot of Blunicums and Newcoms, highly competent players who know what they're doing. I think that's definitely true. I think I've found the bat chat to be a reasonably good credit maker in ranked, but it's only because of the way that I'm playing it. Certainly with heavies, I don't think you could do this and get away with running without a good heavy amount of premium ammo lulled out. It was also, for me, really interesting. I had originally planned to run different tanks potentially and then, use premium ammo, whatever, but I love the Bat Chat, and what I've definitely noticed in Stage 1 was that there was a dearth of players willing to scout. And, games get super campy when you don't do it, and then teams lose when you're not sufficiently aggressive in terms of spotting. And, I've stuck with the Bat Chat. This tank, the mechanics really fit me like a glove. I love the spotting mechanics. I love the mobility. I love the autoloader. The gun handling isn't great, and certainly the thing is super squishy, but the playstyle allows you to do so much. It's very much a finesse tank, and that's one of the reasons why I like playing it. Now, this hill where this 140 is, can be a good place to be against puppies when their tanks are crossing the river on the east side and going south, but none of those heavies are exposing themselves, so I'm not really going to get anywhere fast. We do have a 2-tank lead now, a 3-tank lead, but this is deceptive, and their defense is being anchored by 62A, who is all the way dug in at A1, and we can't do anything until that guy dies, right? Like, East is kind of a stalemate right now, and there are enough tanks there with high hit points. Like, I'm not going to push over there. That would just be stupid. I would get my face punched in. But we can't go and light their STRV and their 50B and their Arties until we get rid of that 62A, because he'll be shooting us in the rear. And you'll see this in a moment here. This 907 is pushing kind of half-heartedly toward the 62A, like he wasn't pushing across full speed. And as a result, he just gets absolutely wrecked presumably by the STRV and maybe other tanks, and their 62A is still sitting back there at full hit point. So we've now managed to choke away, a 3-tank lead, and it's now a 1-tank lead, and I don't really like our positioning on the map. The thing too is, for Bat Chat, I'm not necessarily a brawling tank, so it's not like I can just go charge the 62A if he's at full health and expect to win. I would need all my shots to penetrate and deal above damage for me to win that engagement 1v1, because I believe offhand he's got 1900 hit points, and my clip would do theoretically, is it 1800? No, actually it's 395. Okay, so actually I take that back. If all 5 of my shots land and penetrate, there's a reasonable chance I can kill the 62A. But there's also the risk that he's going to put damage into me, and that his friends that are sitting on the hill to the northeast of me are also going to damage me. Their 62A had come out a little bit and is exposing himself. And I'm going to check. I really should have checked earlier. This is one of these things you got to be really Johnny on the spot as soon as targets are spotted, especially ones that are dangerous as far as getting spotting. Our STRV moved up pretty aggressively. I'm not really a big fan of this move, only because he's so far advanced that he's really not going to be able to get out, and the 62A tries to crawl back into a sniping position, and my first shot misses, but the second one connects, and now that 62A is one-shottable. And this game is really a coin flip, and I'll just tell you right now, I make a few really critical mistakes that I think determine the outcome of the battle. Certainly, you can always argue that this is going to end up being a loss. My teammates could have played better, which is, true, but then again, I make a couple mistakes which I think end up being decisive. Okay, so the 113 takes out the 62. The 62A was pushing a one-shot territory for a number of reasons, but also because I got that second to last shot on him. And now we have to make a decision. We really have 2 options. We can either try to spot them and take them out to the north, so I would basically run along the A line, kind of where that 62A was. Instead, what I opt to do is come here toward the southern side of the map. And what's interesting is this is a red shower battle, just like that earlier one was, but here we've got mostly rank 5 and above opponents, and these guys are a lot better than the players that I played with and faced in the prior red shower battle. So they're not exiting the hills to the east because they know we've got multiple Bat Chats, and they'll get spotted and they'll get smashed. So if I had realized this in real time, I wouldn't have come down here, but after a little while I realized, nothing's happening here. Our Bat Chats, by the way, lost a fair chunk of hit points because they were, at least one of them was frontally engaging the Kronwagen and the Mouse frontally, which just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if a heavy tank is isolated, you can push and circle strafe them, and maybe you'll eat a shot on the way in, but it's worth it. You can take them out. When heavies are clumped together or they're backed by mediums or tank destroyers, you simply can't do that. And I think for the most part, trying to go up against them if they're good players is like beating your face against the wall. Unless you have a lot of hit points and they're almost dead, it's just not worth it. So, thankfully, the players on our team kind of recognize the 113 and 140 now. Recognize let's push to the north. This is probably the softer flank. At most, we're going to face 3 tanks up there: the STRV, the 50B, and the Centurion AX. We're coming up here, and the general advice I would tell people at ranked battles for ranked 4 and above is to make sure you're in a good position first before you fire. Now, I make a huge mistake here. Like, if I fire, there's a reasonable chance that I'll get spotted by the STRV if he is not moving, right? But right here, I should have stopped, aimed in, and started shooting. And instead, I move up a little bit more, and I waste about 5 seconds when I could have been firing. So I will, get some damaging shots on the STRV because I flanked him, and I'm getting these shots. That one, I think, hit the top of his turret. But I might have landed 1 extra shot if I had stopped and fired 5 seconds earlier. And that unfortunately becomes really critical because he gets hit by Artie in a little bit, and had he had less health, I think he might have died, right? And the STRV, aside from their Centurion AX, but their STRV is one of their best spotting tanks and one of the more dangerous ones. And you'll see their Centurion Action X is spotted. I'm not really in any danger at all of being spotted by the STRV unless I fire, because he's moving, and that's going to break any chance he has of his camo. The other dynamic to think about is that their Arties are not puppies. Puppy Arties would probably still, at least one if not both of them, be still sitting along the A lane because, frankly, a lot of Arties are played by average or below average players. So I spot the 50B. He tracks me, so I burn a repair kit and then back up, and I'm hoping to get some help from the 113, but this does not go the way that I was hoping. The 50B was looking at me. The 113 should have gotten at least 1 damaging shot, but the 50B instead clips him out, and now we're in a tough spot, and I can't stay behind that rock. Normally I would sit behind that rock, wait until I drop from being spotted, so give it a good generous 12 seconds or so, and I have to reload my clip anyway. But at this point, I don't know if their Artie's already moved enough that, if they're kind of where their Kronwagen is, right, there's the chance that they could hit me based on where I am in that rock, because they'll be shooting a little bit to the side. But, again, like, I feel like these little mistakes, the not shooting the STRV early enough, maybe I should have stayed poked out against the 50B even though he tracked me, and just, unloaded into him and hoped the 113 would help finish him off. I didn't expect the 50B to clip out the 113 because that would require 2 penetrating shots, and the 50B was looking at me. But hindsight's 2020. I'm going to make another mistake here, and it's kind of hard to say whether this is really a mistake, but I take too aggressive an approach line here. So I get their Kronwagen spotted and their mouse, but their STRV is in position to shoot at me. And so this is really painful here. And check this out. I'm not going in a total straight line. I'm arcing and curving a little bit, but their rank 5 Artie hits me full on the run. Like, that was a pinpoint blast where he hit me, and my tank moved after it was dead. But Artie is problematic in public battles, but in rank 4 and above ranked battles, they're just insane. So this was my last battle of Stage 2. This was the 42nd battle I played of Stage 2, and I did, thankfully, this is going to be my last one, so I did manage to reach vehicle rank 6, which was pretty cool, and still put a little bit of a profit even though that wasn't a loss. But I think if you look at my Stage 1 and Stage 2 stats, you can see that there was significant improvement between them, and that I really helped to push through Stage 2 my ranked efficiency up to 67% total over these 103 battles, and getting up to a 58% win rate. So, my stats between Stage 1 and Stage 2, both stages I got to rank 6, but I was able to get to rank 6 faster in Stage 2 because I played much better. Now, there is a couple elements with the current ranking and chevron system which are problematic. One is that sometimes players will be intentionally selfish. Like, this mouse told us from the very beginning, and he's a Unicum player, but he intentionally sits in the back to farm damage for his own betterment so he can get a chevron, even though that leaves us weak on the front lines, right? And we end up losing the battle. Super frustrating, but nothing that we as players can do, because that's the way the mode was designed. And so some players will intentionally be selfish and not play for the win, and I think that is incenting bad behavior. The other issue with ranked modes is the fact that once you reach personal rank 5, you can't derank. So if a player is good enough to get to rank 5, they can spam battles from that point and then hope in whichever vehicles that they're playing that they can net 5 chevrons or however many to get the next rank. So at that point it becomes a grind, and since you can't derank, there's no penalty for continuing to spam battles, right? And I think this game would be much better off if it implemented more of a regular elo system where the outcome and your performance of every match will cause your rating to go up or down accordingly, and then that way it's less about having a grind where you have to spam a lot of battles or can spam a lot of battles to rank up, and then more about how well you're playing. But this mode is a huge credit sink, which has probably a lot of financial benefits for wargaming, so we'll have to see if they're willing to trade that off and reduce their profitability to make it a better game experience for the players. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts and feedback. Take care.